So, the first question, were we right going to Afghanistan and Iraq? They were very different things. Afghanistan, we were pursuing terrorists very clearly. I think that there's a very clear case for us to go in there. The question that I have now is, should we still be there after all this time? And I think that there's a very limited case to be made for having the United States military be the community organizer for the world. And so,
That's funny.
I try to come up with new lines for it now.
Come on, you guys clap. That was funny.
So we need to make sure when we send guys into Afghanistan and so forth, these other countries, and when we have a surge, that we have a plan for those guys that they can follow, that we can say, this is victory, they can achieve that, and then they can come home. With Iraq, the information that we were given at the time, they had weapons of mass destruction, and it looked like, as I understand it, they were intending to use them in the near term. We had to do something. Did that involve a full-scale invasion of the country, or could it have been handled with a couple of really strategically placed cruise missiles? I don't know. I don't have that information. But I sure would wish that the next time we look at something like this, we're going to look a whole lot closer at the cruise missile solution as opposed to the massive invasion solution. And then the last thing I want to say is that we're there now. And it's kind of like you break it, you buy it. And we owe it to the people there to fix that situation to the best of our abilities, turn the country back over to them, and bring our guys and gals home.
Well, as James said, and I agree, we are there. I mean, that's what it is. And whether we should have gone there or not is a moot point, because we're there. So I'm for one of two things. Either giving the military everything they need so they can win, and if they're not going to do that, if they're going to politicize it, like they do everything else, and have politicians running our military, then they should come home. Because they'll never be able to win that war to any large degree by staying there and having politicians, politicize. Well, we want to make it look like we're being tough. But then on the other hand, we've got the leftovers here. We don't want to seem like a warmonger. Screw that. Let's defeat the enemy. And if we're going to play games, go home. I would like to compliment James on his creative use of endorsements. No, honestly. I said this last debate too, and it's a great question. I admire James' composure and his level-headedness. He doesn't lose his cool. He's a cool cat, and he believes what he believes, and that comes through. But he is, you have a lot of composure, and I admire that. That's a great thing. I wish I had more of that.
That's sort of damning with faint praise, isn't it? As I've come to do these, I've actually come to like Matthew. He's a really smart guy, and he's very driven, and he's very passionate, and I think that's a good quality. So I would say that I like that. Jay Inslee's got to go.
Yes.
And Mr. Burke first.
I don't pretend to have all the answers to that, but my suspicion would be that we probably don't need much in the way of reform. What we need to do is enforce existing laws. What they do is they don't enforce the existing laws, so they want to reform everything. And every time they reform everything, I'm reminded of what I discovered. Reform is often a code word for more big government. And so, rather than enforce existing regulations, like the oil spill that they investigated and gave it, high five on their way out, and then we have this huge tragedy that's terrible. They are not enforcing existing regulations on immigration reform. We need to be tough on immigration. We need to allow immigration legally. I am pro-legal immigration. We need immigrants. We need people to work in this country. We need people to pay into our bankrupt entitlement programs. So I am pro-immigration, but it should be done legally, and existing laws should be enforced before we come up with new ones.
So when Congress went about comprehensive immigration reform last time, it was all about amnesty. And it was all about making 12 million or 15 million or whatever the number was, folks that had come to this country illegally into registered voters. I believe what we need to do is we need to secure our borders first, and that's about the only kind of reform that we need. After we secure the borders, we need to enforce our workplace regulations to ensure that the people that are working here legally, whether that is through some sort of a E-Verify or whatever system is out there. I have heard horrible stories from the small business guys that I work with that have been deceived by people that presented what were apparently real documents. And because they took these documents in good faith and then paid these folks, and then tax time comes around, it turns out that's a bad Social Security number, these small businesses are up for a huge fine. So we've got to, absolutely got to reform that. I am in favor of selective immigration. I believe that we as a country have benefited for our entire history from immigrants coming to the United States. But we need to make sure that those immigrants coming to the United States are selected by us as a country with skills that we need, with some sort of qualities that we need in our country.
I don't think the military should be used as a social experiment. The military is basically to do two things: kill people and break stuff. Not to promulgate relationships between a man and a man and a woman and a woman. I don't see what that has to do with winning wars and keeping our country safe. So I am not for politicians stepping in and mandating that they do social experimentation on things like that. I think that that should be left up. Those important decisions should be left up to the military. The military should handle it, not politicians.
The United States military has a wonderful history of being on the leading edge and managing change. The American military was the first truly integrated institution in our country, and they handled it well. I believe that when the American military tells me as a congressman that it's time to move beyond don't ask, don't tell, it's time to let the military do what they believe they should do.